Chris Mackowski for Emerging Civil War. We're having a fantastic time at our 6th annual Emerging Civil War Symposium at Stevenson Ridge. One of our forgotten battles that we're looking at this weekend is the Battle of Secessionville, which sounds like something that's got Confederacy written all over it. Talking about that at our program is my good friend and podcast co-host, Dan Welch. And Dan, for folks who are not familiar or who have indeed forgotten this forgotten battle, tell us about Secessionville.
So Secessionville is really the climax of a campaign against Charleston in the late spring and early summer of 1862. Secessionville is an effort for the Union Army to quickly push through Confederate defenses that are building up in the area on the numerous seacoast islands in and around Charleston Harbor and Charleston itself. And the battle will result ultimately in a closed door to Charleston, a door that will remain closed until 1865 and William Sherman comes along.
And that area around Charleston, I mean, Charleston's tucked away up in the harbor. And so there is just a whole network of islands and waterways. That's got to be difficult for the Union to navigate. But I suppose that posed some challenges for the Confederates, too.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the really interesting parts of the Secessionville campaign is the logistics involved of moving federal forces. And, we see this combined naval and infantry effort in early 1862 and through the summer of moving troops and supplying troops. But by no means it was perfect. A lot of the federal soldiers would write about just how miserable living on those islands were. The rain, the sand, the swamps, the marshes, and then all the things that come along with that sort of environment, the spread of illness and disease.
And that's not even including the Confederates,
Yeah, right.
Which also pose a problem for them, too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think about mosquitoes and sand. So you say this is the culmination of the campaign, but the Federals don't go marching right into Charleston after this.
No, they don't. Through a series of ill-informed decisions by some federal commanding officers, a defeat at the Battle of Secessionville, the idea of a quick campaign against Charleston and capturing Charleston and this idea of a strategic goal of taking Confederate cities is really closed for the next several years, at least in this theater. And federal forces will pack up by mid-July of 1862 and leave that area.
And there'll still be federal attempts to close off the harbor with a naval blockade.
Right.
Of course, folks know the attack on Morris Island, Battery Wagner by the 54th Massachusetts in the summer of '63. So the Federals still kind of keep trying, but it's like spinning wheels in the sand.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's not this concerted, quick effort that they thought it was going to be during the beginning of the second summer of the American Civil War. And this overland direct approach to Charleston itself is out the window, at least from the south, as the Battle of Secessionville will reveal.
Now, Jim Morgan, who spoke at our symposium for the 5th annual symposium, a great expert on Ball's Bluff, he moved to Charleston about a year ago and has become quite familiar with the area. And he took me to Secessionville. Great little battlefield, well preserved as a local spot. And it's easy to see how things really got bottlenecked during that battle and really became problematic for the Federals.
Yeah, one of the failures of the Federal Army in this engagement was a lack of reconnaissance. And one of the things that they escaped from their foresight was the telescoping nature of the terrain and how from where they deployed towards the Confederate position of Tower Battery at Secessionville funneled in. And so as the attack is underway, there's literally not a physical enough amount of space or room to deploy them into brigade fronts. And so we see units getting bogged down and stuck in what they would call pluff mud down there.
Literally bogged down.
Literally bogged down in these marshes and this pluff mud. We see units that get stuck in the mud and then overrun by units coming up behind them because they can't get out of the way. This is all happening in the pre-dawn hours. It's dark, so it's just a debacle for the Federal High Command issuing these orders without proper support, logistics, reconnaissance, and that the men in the front lines will also pay the price for that. But that's not to say that there's not some heroic moments and some incredibly brave and gallant stands by Federal soldiers in the front lines as they attack this defended Confederate position.
Now, you being a good landlocked Buckeye.
Yeah.
How is it that you got involved or interested in Secessionville?
That's a great question, and I think some of our followers may recall a number of posts that I've done over the years on researching your Civil War ancestor, and that's how Secessionville came to my forefront. My Civil War ancestor was not at Secessionville. He didn't join the 100th Pennsylvania until February of 1864, but the unit of the 100th PA, their first engagement was at Secessionville. So kind of researching that unit and understanding their story and the veterans in the ranks that my ancestor would have met in 1864 led me to work backwards and understand these veterans that he would have met in his company at the time he joined.
And I can just hear the stories now. It's like, oh yeah, you young green guy, you weren't in the pluff mud
Right.
of Secessionville.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So a great forgotten battle. Fantastic talk. I'm glad you're bringing this to the forefront. Any advice you want to give to folks who want to know more about Secessionville?
Yeah, unfortunately, for this forgotten battle, it's been forgotten in the historiography as well. There's only one book written on the Battle of Secessionville since the engagement 157 years ago. That is The Battle of Secessionville by Patrick Brennan. There's only one magazine article on the Battle of Secessionville that was published about 20 years ago by our good friend at Blue and Gray magazine, which was also written by Patrick Brennan. So, go online, go to those secondary markets and find that issue of Blue and Gray magazine, find Patrick Brennan's work on Secessionville, and get engaged in this lost and forgotten battle of the American Civil War.
And I think you said there's even just one sketch.
One sketch, that's it. One sketch. No photographs, one sketch. Of the Tower Battery. So.
It was all lost in the pluff mud. Which I'm just having fun saying, honestly.
It's fun to walk away with those little tidbits from primary sources.
Pluff mud.
Yeah.
So, but the battlefield is preserved.
It
If
is.
you are in the Charleston area, feel free to stop by Secessionville. It's on James Island, I think it is.
It is on James Island. There's a great little park there, a little parking lot. There's a short walk through the battlefield. There's generally some paper walking brochures that are stocked by some of the locals that really oversee and help care for that battlefield itself.
A couple of monuments and really cool earthworks out there.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Definitely worth the stop. So there you have it. Secessionville is forgotten no longer thanks to the diligent work of Dan Welch. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, so Chris Mackowski, Dan Welch, I'm going to put a plug in here for our podcast because we have a really good time
We do.
podcasting. You want to check that out as well. For Emerging Civil War, coming from the 6th Annual Emerging Civil War Symposium at Stevenson Ridge, Dan Welch, Chris Mackowski, have a groovy day.